Hello there. Long time no see. This one's not going to be about my fitness journey as much as I feel weird saying that because I still don't consider myself a particularly fit person. Anyways, not the topic today. I think you'll be able to tell by whatever the fuck I end up titling this. Something very different this time around. Uh, I found out yesterday that I got diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, depressive type. Um, as news that will not surprise anyone at all, um, especially if you know what that is. I have my paperwork sitting over here. Maybe I can get that without embarrassing myself too badly with the camera angles here. I'm gonna have to flip through to the page where the diagnosis is actually written, um, and skip all the ones where my personal information are written. Uh, it might be at the bottom of every page, in which case maybe I won't show that. But if I can get away with it, here we are. I will just fold over the part that I really don't want to put on camera. It's my old name, really. This is the part that bothers me. I just don't like it. Um, so I'm gonna keep that one to myself for vanity reasons, because I seriously I do not like that name. Anyways, here you have it. If you can read that, I don't know if the camera focus is gonna help you much, or if it's like reversed or something. If so, my apologies. I can't see for shit. I have bad eyesight. My hearing's pretty bad too. Anyways, yeah, I've known for a minute that I was experiencing some psychotic symptoms. I was personally suspecting that I have schizotypal personality disorder, which is one of the cluster A personality disorders. Um, Definitely look all this shit up. It's really interesting, regardless of anything to do with me, or like if you don't have anybody in your personal life that has or is suspected of having any of these things. Still, this shit is all pretty interesting if you ask me. So you should totally look it up. But yeah, I was thinking schizotypal because I don't, for clarity here, I don't hallucinate. Like, I don't straight up see things that are not actually there. I don't hear voices or anything like that. I do get weird, distortions where it's sometimes the ground, or like if I'm standing at the edge of my bed, like looking down at my bed, like it'll like kind of breathe a bit, quote unquote. Like it's an effect similar to like what people describe when they do mushrooms or acid. And of course, I'm self aware enough. I'm connected to reality enough. I'm not going to pretend like I have a whole lot of self awareness. I don't think anyone who has self awareness would leave the house looking the way that I do. um, I'm connected enough to reality to know that, of course, my bed is not actually shifting or breathing or anything. I know that it's just, my brain is fucking up the visual input signals there. But it can be a bit disorienting at times. It can actually, there are moments where it's, kind of tricky to walk without stumbling because, you see the floor moving when you know it's not. It kind of makes me think of the way like people in the military describe like how you have no depth perception when you have like monocular night vision goggles. I've heard stories of dudes in Afghanistan would go out on a night op or whatever with like the local like Afghan commandos, but they had never used night vision before, the Afghan guys. And like somebody, I can't remember who, somebody told a story of like an Afghan dude using night vision for the first time, but he didn't tell anybody that he had never used night vision before, and he ended up like falling and like royally fucking up his face, like bad, like breaking his fucking teeth and everything, because he essentially fell down like one of those farming terrace things because he had no depth perception and he wasn't prepared for that because he'd never used night vision before. I have moments that are, way, way smaller in severity, but it's just like, you look down at the ground and it's kind of, you're like, it's just, I don't know, it's weird. Shit like that is as far as any sort of audiovisual perceptions go. Or like, sometimes if I'm listening to music, it feels like it kind of speeds up or slows down. And I know, of course, that it's not actually doing that, but I just perceive it that way incorrectly. Um, so yeah, I've never had like a bout of legit psychosis. I've never been put on antipsychotic medications. I've never been involuntarily hospitalized. I've never voluntarily sought like a mental health hospitalization. Nothing of the sort. Um, but yeah, you saw depressive type. So the thing with schizoaffective, for those of you that don't know, is schizoaffective basically is you technically qualify for schizophrenia. You also technically qualify for a mood disorder. You're at the combination schizophrenia and mood disorder. So, except for, of course, like in my case at least, I don't know if it's this way for everybody, but I don't have the psychotic symptoms as bad, like I was just saying. I have the mood disorder symptoms real bad. So, and I've been listening to a bunch of videos and like looking at articles and stuff about this, and it might have been Dr. Grande. He's popular on YouTube. You'll have no problems finding him. I think he might have said that the prognosis, so like the outlook for schizoaffective is, I think he said better than for schizophrenia by itself, but worse than having a mood disorder by itself. So, if I were simply suffering from major depressive disorder, that would be more manageable. Perhaps have a better outcome, possibly, than what I have. But what I have is still better, perhaps, than simply having schizophrenia in terms of, being treatable, manageable, whatever. And I feel like that rings true. If I don't have legit psychosis, I don't have straight up hallucinations, then yeah, I probably have it easier than somebody who does. But also, having psychotic symptoms in general sucks. And that's probably worse for me than if I were simply depressed to hell and back. Um, so aside from the distorted perceptions, what other psychotic symptoms? I'm paranoid as fuck about other people. Um, I have a bit of a persecutory, however you want to pronounce it, a persecution complex regarding other people. I just feel like everyone sees me as a freak, which like I don't blame them. I am. Um, but I have it in my mind that because they see me that way, because I am a freak, I'm convinced that at any moment, any random person is on the verge of committing horrible violence against me because of how freakish I am. Which maybe there are some people that are like that. I'm sure there are some people who see me and have those feelings. But the problem is that I just assume everyone feels that way about me, and that's totally not true. Not remotely. And I probably highly overestimate the likelihood of such a thing happening. But I mean, when you consider my entire like, all I've been doing with this channel really is like the fitness vlogs and stuff. But my entire reason for getting into fitness in the first place was the fear that someone would do violence against me, and I wanted to be better prepared to try to survive it. Um, I wanted to get in shape so that I could get into MMA training, which I'm still doing. I've started again, really, is what happened. There was a huge hiatus just because of like scheduling, logistics, financing, you know. But yeah, another thing that this channel sometimes features is I'm a bit of a gun nut. And again, I got into that as like a concealed carry thing, and also like I was working security when I first got into it. So like it was about protecting myself. And all of these things, honestly, like running, lifting weights, fighting, guns and stuff, like there is an extent to which I enjoy some of it. But there's a lot of it that I just don't like at all. Like I hate running. but I still do it a lot. Like the past couple of months, I've been running 50 to 60 plus miles a month. And I don't even fucking like it. But I do it because I feel like my cardio is important to support my MMA training, which I do to protect myself. So I'm clearly fucking, I'm a little bit bonkers. It says so on the paper here. I'm bonkers, all right? I'm fucking bananas, which is not a surprise to anyone, like I said. And I can honestly look back on my life. Like, I've been noticing my psychotic symptoms more. And I feel like the paranoia is getting worse. But, like, if I look back on my childhood and everything, like, it was always there. And I just, it got hand waved away as me being weird. In recent years, people have suggested that I might be autistic, which I think I probably still could be concurrent with the schizoaffective. I don't know. It would be really hard to tell because I feel like having schizoaffective probably does make you a little bit weird. Um, but anyways, I feel like people have just wanted to say, "Oh, he's just strange. He's just an eccentric. He's just autistic, whatever." Um, but I mean, fucking come on. Like there's a point where you gotta say, oh, okay, this is too much. And I feel like I've passed that point so many times in my life. Um, Starting as early as fucking elementary school, to be honest. I think the depressive component first started in elementary school. And here's actually a thing that makes me wonder, because I don't know if you saw, but on the paper, like one of the recommendations is a psych eval, which I thought that's what I had yesterday when I got this news, but I guess not. Which makes me wonder if like this is not a final diagnosis, or if it's just like you know, at a first glance, the doctor suspects this kind of deal. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. So take everything I'm saying with a pile of salt. Um, I could be wrong about this. The doc could be wrong about this. Who knows? But there are a lot of things about it that do make sense. But anyways, I was gonna say that for the mood component, there has not been a mood episode, unless of course a depressive episode can last from fourth grade until 29 and counting, being my current age. Um, unless a mood episode can last that long, then sure. But if that's not the case, then yeah, I don't think there's been a mood episode. I've been stuck here since I was a kid. I remember there was a time I saw a doctor in high school. It's just like a family, primary care provider, and he said you're the most depressed person I've ever met. And he was the one that gave me my first SSRI, citalopram. That shit made me sleep around the clock. I couldn't keep taking it. But yeah, and that tracks. That tracks. I started seeing, like, the first time I ever saw any kind of mental health professional, I was involuntarily assigned to a counselor. It was not a commission. I wasn't like, inpatient, but I was mandatorily sent to talk therapy sessions with a counselor when I was in high school. I think it was my sophomore year, I want to say. So I would have been 16 or 17. Because I wrote some shit in an essay at school that a teacher interpreted as suicidal, which it may or may not have been. And that's what landed me in counseling for the first time ever. So yeah, that's been going on for a hot minute. Like recently, a friend of mine who does actually have some formal training in matters of the mind was like, "You read as bipolar 1 to me," and I was like, "You see, I've never had mania or even hypomania. Like, there's never an upswing for me. Like, there's the lowest of the low, fucking absolute, unimaginable rock bottom, and then there's like, only about the fifth layer of hell. Like that's the highest my mood ever gets. Is like there's my mood fluctuates between holy shit, this guy needs the hospital versus wow, this guy's fucked up. Like, there's no, if baseline for most people is here, I don't get any higher than about here. So, yeah, I definitely, if I have schizoaffective, sorry. If I do, it is definitely not the bipolar type. Because I live down in the dumps. I am the dumpster man. Like, it doesn't get any better than that for me. Um, and I've just like, I'm totally unmedicated, by the way. I have a prescription for Klonopin, but I haven't taken one in months. Um, that's it. So I live unmedicated. And I manage. I clearly am not doing great, but like, when this is my daily reality for literal decades, you get used to it eventually, I guess, to an extent. So yeah, the paranoia has been getting wild recently, and I feel like part of it is definitely the isolation, because it's not like, this is a condition where things are fairly stable. Um, I'm doubtful that I'm in like prodrome for legit schizophrenia, or like, leading up to a psychotic episode or something. I doubt that. I think that's one of the reasons why I suspected schizotypal is, like I said, I've always been weird, but it's fairly stable. Aside from just specifically the paranoia towards strangers has been getting worse, but like honestly, I feel like there are outside stimuli that may be complicating my ability to stay grounded in reality, such as the fact that when I go out for a run that I don't even like, um, people in passing cars will throw shit at me. Like the other day, so I run about an hour, a little bit more, every time I go out, which is most days that it's not raining, but is also above like 55 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't like it when it's cold, it hurts my throat. But, anyways, there was one outing within that like roughly hour and 10 minutes that I run that I had two fucking different people throw separate shit at me. One of them threw like a balled up like Subway wrapper, like for the fucking sandwich. And somebody else threw a fucking can of like wasp spray. Like the one that has like the straw attached to it. The straw was still attached to the can. I didn't pick it up, so I couldn't tell you if it was full or not. But it sure looked like it had been unused by the fact that the straw was still taped to the side of the can. They fucking threw that out of their car window at me while I was running. Like, how am I supposed to not be paranoid about other people when I go outside and run for an hour in my own neighborhood and two different people throw shit at me, one of which could have possibly injured me if it had actually hit? I've never had somebody throw something and land, but like, yeah, there were those two incidents just the other fucking day. There was a time during high school when I was out on a walk and somebody threw a fucking half full bottle of Gatorade at me. Like, so it's hard to like calm myself down in terms of like how I see strangers as dangerous when they're fucking throwing shit at me out of their fucking car when I'm minding my own business. I've got my earbuds in listening to music and I'm out on a run, not bothering anybody. I'm just wearing like capri leggings and a t-shirt with my hair up in a ponytail. Like, it's not like, I'm wearing a billboard that says kill all straight people or something. Like, I mind my own business. I don't get it. I don't get it. People are fucked up. Or like there was a time like a month or two ago. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to say this on YouTube. So there is a particular word applied to particularly homosexual males that starts with F. And if you say the whole thing, the last three letters spell got. You know the word I'm talking about. Somebody screamed so hard their voice broke in their car, stopped at a red light with the window down as I was running past. Again, minding my own fucking business. No political statements anywhere on my attire. No nothing. Again, just capri leggings, black running shoes, black t-shirt. I think it's probably my t-shirt. The cover of Mastodon's Emperor of Sand album. I have that on a t-shirt. I think that's what I was wearing that day. The fucking Emperor of Sand album cover t-shirt, plain black capri leggings, black running shoes, hair in a ponytail, no makeup, whatever. And somebody fucking screeches that word at me as they're stopped at a red light. So it's not even like they're just passing by. They're stuck there at the intersection where everyone can see them. I can see them. Like, they're not like just a random anonymous passerby. Like, everybody is watching them publicly freak the fuck out over me running. And it's just like, if people are that incensed by the mere appearance of me minding my own fucking business, like, yeah, I'm sorry, but people are fucked up and dangerous, and I can't trust them. Um, I've kind of become known to my friends. Like, I have like slogans now where I'm like, life is cheap, steel is cheaper, trust no one, not ever. But it's fucking true. Like, it rings true to me. I think if you know I'm incriminating myself here because I'm about to just straight up admit to a delusion. But honestly, if you don't believe those things, I think you're wrong. Personally, which of course is not. I know. Again, I'm aware that that is not how you're supposed to think. But at least in my case, when you go out in public looking the way that I do, that is how you have to think if you want to live. Uh, is my personal opinion. But yeah, that's how I ended up getting that on these sheets of paper, I'm sure. Because I didn't lie. I didn't go in there and lie about shit. I lied about the extent of my, like, passive suicidal ideation because I would never do it. I know that very well. I'm terrified of the concept of death. It's the last thing I want. Realistically, I want things to get better, is what I really want. Um, but, everybody who is suffering with major depression on top of psychotic symptoms and is routinely out of work, routinely on the verge of homelessness, like, I think it's pretty normal for a person in that circumstance to be like, man, I sure wish my parents never had kids, or at least not me. They should have stopped after my older brother. It's hard not to have that thought pop into my head sometimes, even if it's nothing that I would ever act on. I'm not a danger to myself or anyone else. I don't need fucking hospitalized. I have my own counselor that I see regularly, and the doctor that I saw yesterday. If there was a problem, it would have been caught. So hold your fucking horses. Um, so yeah, I didn't spend a whole lot of time talking about that one because, like I said, I don't need hospitalized. As a matter of fact, I do not. And I didn't want them to fucking misinterpret shit. So I didn't talk too much about that. My counselor knows more about it. And like I said, she hasn't found any need to report me. So neither of my friends and family, who I've told in more depth about this shit than even I'm telling you, so yeah, I'm not a risk, but regardless, I didn't want them to take shit that way. I didn't want them to stick on that because until I had to like forcibly bring up the psychotic symptoms because like the questionnaires we were running through and shit, clearly she was about to just say anxiety and depression, which I was like, let's go off the questionnaires for a second because I've got some fucking news for you. Shit goes beyond that. That's why I hate those fucking questionnaires. Like, basically, it only wanted to ask about depression and anxiety, insomnia, and, like, addiction issues. And anything beyond that was not on the questionnaire. And I hate that shit. Because I feel like I've been misdiagnosed several times in my life. Like, maybe this could have been caught earlier if the right questions had been asked. Or if, questions of a type not strictly about depression and anxiety had been asked. It just feels like depression and anxiety is so fucking common that I'm not sure I've ever met anyone who doesn't have at least one or the other, if not both. To the point that, like, if you have literally anything else going on, you have to go out of your way to, like, force some of these fucking professionals to look into it, or else they're just gonna say depression and anxiety. Here's an SSRI. Get the fuck out of my office. Um, it's frustrating. It's fucking frustrating. I'm gonna. Well, I was chucking the paper and hit an empty beer can. Anyways, yeah. God. So that was the diagnostic process. Was going to a behavioral health center in my area, and sorry, it's still early in the morning for me at least. Which I think it's like 9 or 10 at this point. I can't fucking tell from here. I have shitty eyesight, and I'm looking at just like the clock in the corner of my computer screen. So that was how it was getting a diagnosis. Um, in terms of what I experience every day, I feel like you kind of know already. I'm weird as hell. I'm very cagey and like timid in public. It's hard not to be when you are constantly waiting for someone to pull a gun and or knife on you. You get a little shy in that context. I hate standing too close to people again because I don't want to be close enough for them to fucking stab me. So at least not, immediately, or like, grab me and put me in like a choke, or something. Like, I just want to be out of arm's reach of people at all times. So I'll have moments where I'm like in line at the grocery store for like the checkouts, and they keep getting so fucking close, and I don't understand why, but it's like the 6 feet of COVID is not enough. I need 10 to 15 at the very minimum. And if you really want me to be comfortable, a couple football fields. That's how far away from me you should be. Like a kilometer or so at all times. That makes me happy. Anything inside that is just like, I will quietly seethe, but I'll tolerate it. But once you get within like 10 to 15 feet, like, I am actively going to get fucking frustrated with you, which is not normal. Of course not. So I have to suppress that and pretend that I am a human being when I go out in public. To varying levels of success. Um, Shit like that. That's my daily struggle. Is I need people to stay away from me physically. I need them to not speak to me. If you are a stranger, you have no business with me. Leave me the fuck alone. Um, if I'm out running, especially leave me the fuck alone. When I'm a pedestrian, no one in a vehicle should interact with me in any way. Please don't honk. It startles the fuck out of me. Loud noises in general are really hard for me. That's why I previously had suspected that maybe I had some PTSD shit going on, but like, I don't have any like specific triggers like to any like specific event. I don't have like flashbacks or intrusive thoughts about a specific event. So I don't think PTSD is necessarily it. I do think I have been through some traumatic shit, and that does affect the way that I think. But again, like, schizoaffective is one of those things where it can be, at least to some extent, traumatogenic. There are definitely genetic markers that will make it more likely, but I don't think it's strictly genetic in origin. Um, it's complicated. This might be a worse angle, but my fucking abs were getting sore. Um, so yeah, there's some trauma in there, but I don't think it's like specifically a PTSD thing as much as it's just, my thinking has been tainted by a lot of shitty things in my life. Uh, oh well, woe is me, I suppose. I think the worst of it is that, I grew up with a mother who was herself quite paranoid. I don't think to the point of having my condition though. Um, just real bad anxiety and really mistrustful and isolated. I was very isolated, which I heard somebody, I don't remember who, but one of these videos I've been listening to about this, they were like, isolation in adolescence is a real risk factor, blah blah blah, and it's like, wow, I can count how many times I had somebody over at my house on one hand up until like partway through high school when I finally started making friends for the first time. Like, oh boy, I had that. I sure had that. Um, and even then, like I started hanging out with like 1 to 3 people, and like, God, sorry, I'm really tired. Um, I was never allowed to have like sleepovers. Like people weren't allowed to sleep over at my house, nor was I allowed to stay the night at anybody else's house at all through childhood. So that's just an experience I never had. It was very strictly prohibited in my house, or like I wasn't allowed to leave the street that we lived on without adult supervision until I was 18. So yeah, isolated isn't even the fucking half of it. Like I was wow. The fact that I went to public school is the only reason that I have any socialization to me at all outside of my immediate family, because we moved away from my extended family. So all of my like cousins and shit, aunts and uncles, I never saw them, but like, once every couple of years we would make the trek back down south to see everybody for like a week or two, and then we would come back up. And that was it. So yeah, no extended family connections. The immediate family were not. We were not a very close household, and like no friends until high school, and even then, just a few, and still kind of kept at a distance in some ways. So yes, isolation was a theme, very much so in my childhood. So I kind of, to an extent, I was never really properly socialized and grew up feral. So that sucks and is probably a big factor in how I ended up this way. Um, and yeah, like I said, learning from my mom's example. Holy shit, I'm so tired. Learning from my mother's example of being extremely suspicious of everyone and everything and anxious in general, to a very unreasonable degree. Um, yeah, I think that shit all combined, plus like I've told my sob story a million times of like when I first started wearing women's clothing, my parents rejected me quite viciously. I there was a period of couch surfing, and more people did more fucked up shit to me in the process of that. Just a lot of betrayal of trust and like pulling the rug out from under me, and like, you know, and I was already like this at that point to an extent. Like I said, my paranoia has been getting worse lately, but it was never not bad. Like it was always bad. So like, for example, back in 2015 when I had that huge calamity with my parents, I suppose, that led to me being kicked out, in my opinion, running away, in others' opinion. I didn't feel like it was an option, but it was definitely not presented as an option in my opinion. But um, I ended up with a family down in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. Holy shit, I'm about to yawn again. I've had coffee, by the way. I lived with this family down in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, that were fucking psychos, like terrible people, in my opinion. Um, if you ask me, they took me in because they saw me as a wayward trans youth who had no family to fall back on, and so they could do what they wanted with me because they knew that I had nowhere to go and no way to take care of myself. Because I didn't have a driver's license or a car or a job or any money. So I was totally dependent on whoever would be able to house me, and they could because the patriarch of the household, who didn't actually live there most of the time, he lived in Saudi Arabia most of the time because he was working as like a PR guy for fucking Saudi Aramco, like the oil company. So they made bank, and he wasn't there most of the time. But the head of the house in practicality was this woman who was a nightmare. In my opinion, a narcissist, like of the diagnosable kind. Um, Fucking whacked out of her mind. But so was I. And like the theme there was that basically I was afraid to leave my room for most of the time that I lived there. I didn't start that way. I wasn't like afraid, but I was shy and timid. Like I said, I am very slow to come around to people. I never fully trust anybody. Um, Even my most recent ex, who I dated for 3 years, and I thought I was going to marry that woman, I still had moments where we would be in bed together and her asleep next to me, and I would be paranoid that she would just like roll over with a knife out of nowhere and just start stabbing me for no fucking reason. Like there were just times when I almost I'm again horribly incriminating myself here. I almost saw her as like demonic almost, which I don't even believe in any of that shit. Like if you ask me, there's no such thing as a soul even. I think what we call a soul is just the electricity running through neural pathways that give us our personality. And as soon as that electricity stops, i.e. brain death, that's when you die. And there is no soul. It's just that your body is no longer powered electronically. And that's the difference between being alive and having a personality or not. Or why, for example, people who are in a vegetative state, those parts of the brain are no longer functioning correctly. And so it's like, oh, the body is there, but the soul is not. The parts of the brain that give you a personality aren't functioning anymore. That's all it is to me. I don't think there's an afterlife either. I think whenever we die, it goes back to the way that it was like before we were born, as far as our perspective, because we're not fucking there. Um, so I don't believe in any God. I don't believe in any demons or devils, really. But there were still times when, like, I almost saw her in that light, even though she did nothing to warrant that from me. She was only ever kind and gentle with me, like to a fault. Very kind and gentle person. Like that's the type that I go for, really. And yet there were still times when I was fucking horrified of her for no reason at all. Um, so yeah, when I can love someone more than I've ever loved anybody, and they're the center of my world, and I still am afraid that they're just going to roll over and stab me as they're sleeping next to me in our bed. I have a hard time trusting these people that I knew on Facebook that took me in on short notice. Um, but they were offended by that. They were apparently quite hurt, and they were like, "Oh, you're ungrateful. We give you all this and you throw it back in our face by acting so scared of us." And it's just like, I am pathologically scared of everybody. Okay? I'm sorry, I can't help it. But I didn't know that at the time. I only got this diagnosis yesterday, and this shit happened 9 fucking years ago. So I sure wish I had known before then. Maybe I could have gotten a bit more leniency. Maybe I would have had an okay relationship with these people if they had had that context of knowing that I'm fucking brain sick. And it was not like a personal thing. It was not me passing judgment on them so much as like I can't not feel that way. The other major problem for me is holding down a job. Um, since I last posted anything, I'm not sure if I was working my most recent job at the time. I may not have been, or maybe I was. Um, but yeah, my I've left another job yet again. Um, I've been fired once. And unsurprisingly, the situation was that I think I've explained this before. I was getting bumped from third shift to second shift, which meant I was losing my third shift differential. This was a factory environment. Um, I was pissed off about that pay cut, and I specifically thought that my manager was doing it to me just because she didn't like me. Um, and so I was super pissed off, especially because like my work was perfect. My team leader told me that all the fucking time because I kept asking him all the time because I kept worrying about it. So I'm not bullshitting when I tell you my work was fine. My attendance was fine, like better than everybody else on my fucking team. I'm not kidding. I'm not lying. Um, so I felt like it was totally unjustified. I was like, this motherfucker, this new third shift foreman. That was the title. This new third shift foreman fucking hates my guts just over my appearance because, like I said, there was nothing related to the quality of my work or my attendance or anything like that. That would be a reason for her to be fucking pissy with me. So I was like, this motherfucker has some kind of an ideological bent or is like religious or something and hates me because I look like I'm queer, which I'm really technically even not. For those of you who are, because I've had like there's an acronym for it, YWNBAW, however you would like to pronounce that. I've had people put that shit in my comments before. It stands for you will never be a woman. Well, guess what? Dumbass. I refer to myself as a male intentionally. I'm a femboy, I'm a cross-dresser, and I'm not even gay or bi. I've only ever dated women. So shut the fuck up, moron. So yeah, I just felt like I was being unfairly singled out over my appearance, which people draw these incorrect conclusions from anyways. Like, you might assume that I'm trans or gay, but I'm not. I just kind of look like it. But regardless, I thought I was being singled out over that, so I lost my fucking shit. It turns out that no, it was somebody from second shift wanted to be on thirds, and I had the lowest seniority in the union structure for third shift, so I was getting switched over because my name came up as the lowest on the totem pole. And it was totally nothing personal at all, and it had nothing to do with the third shift foreman, who I had not really been getting along with, anyways. Um, so there you have it. The one time I've been fired, it was because my fucking persecution complex made me act like a total whack job. Um, Otherwise, all of my jobs from, there was a warehouse job that I started in April of 2022 and left in June of 2022. That was because my temp contract came to an end and they just didn't fucking they told me that the temp agency was asking too much for them to buy out my contract. I suspect that's not the case. I think they didn't want to buy out my contract at all, and they just direct hired another guy. I think is what happened. But anyways, um, so there was that job, lasted 3 months per contract. The job after that, I walked out on in a fit of rage. Um, then the job after that was the one that I got fired from, and then this most recent job, I walked out on in a fit of rage. um, because what happens is, like I said, my work is pretty good. I'm pretty fast too, and my attendance is good. The problem is with these unskilled labor jobs, and anyone who's worked in a factory before can tell you this, factory or warehouse, because that's what all of these jobs have been for me, is factories and warehouses. Um, if you are a good worker in a place like that, they will use you as a load-bearing pillar to support the entire fucking facility in terms of the workload. Because other people phone it in. And you always wish that you could be like those other people that half-ass it and they never have any extra expectations heaped upon them because everybody knows that they won't meet them. I always wish I could be that person because it would be so much easier than the person that I actually am, which is the person that tries. And so they expect me to keep trying harder and harder. But the thing is, I have ultra depression and psychotic symptoms. I'm dealing with a lot. And to constantly have more and more shit heaped on me at work because they think I can take it, it gets to a point where eventually we find out that actually, no, I can't take it. I am severely mentally ill, and piling work stress on top of me, in addition to that, just doesn't really work out very fucking well. Surprise, surprise. And so I eventually get pissed off and leave. And I never have anything lined up to fall back on, so I just keep putting myself in a position where I'm just living on my credit card. which is not good. And I'm in that position again. It is October 18th as I'm recording this of 2024, and I have roughly half of November's rent. And I'm just putting groceries and gas and shit on my credit card, and I can't pay my rent with my credit card, or else I would be fine. I have like a couple $1,000s left on my credit card before I'm maxed out. Uh, but I have, my rent. I owe 550 for November by the end of the month, and I have like 200 to 300 after my credit card payment. So that's unfortunate. I'm probably just gonna have to fucking DoorDash. I've been job hunting. Like I put out like literally 20 fucking applications last night. I'll see if any of them go anywhere, but it's not gonna be fast enough to save my ass for November. This is not me e-begging. You're not gonna find a PayPal or GoFundMe link or anything. I'm gonna handle my shit however I have to, the same way I always fucking do. But I'm sick of ending up in this position. And I'm hoping the whole reason I sought out an official diagnosis in the first place is because I was hoping I could get into some kind of like a vocational rehab thing, or at the very least request accommodations like formally from my next employer to tell them like, hey, I'm fucking batshit. So please don't put so much pressure on me. Like realize that I have limitations. And like I'm a good worker, you'll get a lot out of me, but just don't push me too much. Is all I ask. Like the standard you expect from the average guy should be the most that you expect from me. Because the moment you start expecting me to do double, 3 times that, like my last job did, I'm gonna fall apart. And I can't help it. I literally can't help it. That's what pissed me off about my last job. I'm just gonna say straight up, I was working for FedEx as a package handler, all right? And I was told by management that their expectation was 150 pieces per hour. And by pieces, we mean packages, of course. 150 pieces per hour loaded onto the 4 trucks that I was working per night. Anyone who's ever worked at a FedEx facility as a package handler, you roughly know, like 4 trucks per night. This is like a roughly 4-hour shift, like 4.5. 4 trucks, total of about 600 pieces at a rate of 150 per hour. That's challenging but manageable. I was not really having that much trouble with it. I was keeping my area clean too. I didn't have a lot of shit staged outside of my trucks. I was putting that shit away, and I would put it like at least close to, if not totally numerical order inside the truck. I tried to get it as close as possible because I didn't want the drivers to have to do my job too. I know that they have their own job to do, and it's going to take longer than mine, and I have empathy for that. I did seasonal driver helper with UPS last year, so I know a bit about like the driver's end of things, and I didn't want to fuck those guys over. I wanted to do right by them. So I tried to get it close to numerical order, and I tried to stage as little as possible outside of the truck, unless of course the driver preferred otherwise. You kind of have to figure out what specific drivers want you to do, and kind of fly by that. But anyways, I was trying to do the job to the best of my ability, and I was handling 150 an hour fine, which we were told was supposed to be the standard. But the night I got pissed off and left, so the shift started at 4 a.m., and it was supposed to end at 8:30. Less than half of my workload for the night, so, about 150 to 200 pieces per truck, less than half of it had arrived by 7:10 a.m. So we're down to the last hour and 20 minutes, and the other half plus of all the shit that I'm supposed to load for the night finally starts showing up. And management is nowhere to be found, as per fucking usual. And everybody but me on that line was a new person, like less than 3 months working there. So I'm catching all of their shit that they're missing too, and having to like, nobody who's not, if you haven't worked as a package handler, you're not going to fucking understand this, but the belt is split between evens and odds, and it is manually split that way. Like it all just comes down a chute, and somebody at the head of the line has to separate it out so that evens are on one side, odds are on the other. I was halfway down the line and I was fucking splitting because nobody knows how to count to 10. They're not paying any fucking attention. They're missing all their shit. So I'm running shit back up to the guy in front of me. I'm splitting the belt. I'm catching all the shit that's like getting caught up in the fucking safety cages is coming down the belt because they aren't fucking splitting it properly. They're not spacing it properly. So I'm dealing with all of that shit on top of the fact that I'm suddenly having to work 300 plus pieces per hour, literally double the standard that we're supposed to do. So I lost it. When my supervisor finally came around at like 8:15, I told her like, because she saw that shit had piled up. And I told her half of this shit didn't even show up until after 7, so this is my last night. She's like, oh, okay. I could tell that she didn't believe me. But after the shit finally ended and we got everything put away and it was done for the day, everybody was leaving. On my way out, I handed her my badge. And she was like, are you sure? I was like, do you think this shit is going to change? And she just gave me a look. She didn't even say anything. She was like, I was like, I'm sure. I'm sure. So I handed her my badge and I left. And she told me, she even said, and I checked in the like work app thing later that she was not lying. She said, I'll take you off the schedule and put you as like unassigned. And you can come back if you need to. I said, I appreciate that. But I'm not going back. Even if I have to, even if I don't make rent for next month and I have to move back in with my parents in Kentucky, I'm never working in a FedEx facility again. Dear God. Shit like that was the norm there. It was like that every night. And everybody had fucking problems with it. Like there was a woman there that was 35, 6 years my senior, and there was a night that she had a screaming, crying breakdown. Like literally sobbing, wailing incoherently. You couldn't understand what she was saying. 35 years old. Adult woman with like a husband and a house and everything. That was the state that people were pushed to in that place. And here I am with both major depressive disorder and a degree, like a mild form of schizophrenia, basically. And they expected me to deal with that. Like, of course I fucking fell in. Like, the drivers were struggling with it too because, like I said, everybody's a fucking new person all the time because they can't keep anybody because it was a shitty job. Like, there was a time I almost got hit in the head because a driver threw, it was a Milwaukee, like a cordless drill. It was a package, like not actually like his own, but like a package that was meant for a customer. He threw it out of his truck, and it was one of my trucks as I happened to be like kind of walking past, just out of sheer frustration, and it almost hit me in the fucking head, and that dude almost got fired. But shit like that happened all the fucking time. Everybody throwing shit, screaming, the one woman having a crying breakdown, like that was like the norm there. That was just the reality of that job. And so like of course I wasn't going to succeed in an environment like that, but that is just the nature of factory and warehouse work in this country. Like the one job, the last job I had in Kentucky, the fucking ham factory, they were about to make us work. It was a 9.5 hour shift in a cold ass factory, like 40 degrees Fahrenheit, 9.5 hour shift at night. They were about to make us pull 7-day weeks from like the end of November until sometime in January or February. 7-day weeks, 9.5 hour shifts, 40 degrees, middle of fucking nowhere ham factory with these shitty rubberized steel-toed boots that hurt the fuck out of your feet. It was madness. Like, yeah, of course I walked out on that shit. Sorry, I almost dropped my fucking phone. Of course I walked out on that, and I don't understand how anybody else didn't. Well, I mean, other people did, but I don't understand how literally even just one person would have stayed through that. Apparently some people did, but most didn't, because I had made it through the probation period, which most people, of course, the vast majority of people don't. I would say at that specific factory, at least 80% quit before they make it through the probation period. Like in my orientation class, there were 30 of us, and less than 5 made it all the way through to probation. And even those that did, less than half of us were still there a month after our probation period. Most people were popped because of the attendance policy. They were late too many times, they skipped too many times, and so they were gone. Um, I only had half of the attendance points necessary to get fired after at the point that I walked out, which was a month or two after the end of my probation period. So I was like, basically, there were two of us from my orientation class left. So it is not me being like particularly difficult compared to most people. Compared to most people, I'm fairly solid. But like I said, like when you're a decent worker in these places, they just expect too much of you. They come to rely on you as like, instead of the night that I walked out on that job, for example, I was at the weighing stations. There were six little like scale and computer and printer setups where you would pick up a fully packaged ham and you would put it on the weighing scale and it would automatically print out a little sticker. You put the sticker on like the tag on the ham and you dump it back on the belt and it goes back to the guys who box up the hams and then it goes from there into like the shipping area. So there are six of those stations, right? When I got there, two or three were just straight up not working, and another two or three, depending on how many were not working. There was one working, and it was the one that I was on, basically, because the other ones, they were either not working at all, or they were set up for the wrong product, because the fucking team leads or the line supervisors, whoever's job it was, not mine, because I wasn't trained on this shit and it was not my responsibility. Like, very solidly, I was not supposed to fuck with this shit. They hadn't changed over what product the fucking way stations were set up for before our shift started and we were running a different product from the last shift. Somebody in that shift change, a brown hat as we called them, which were the like, I don't remember what they were not team leads because it was not a team thing, but they were not like a line supervisor, but they were still a step above just the blue hats as we were. A brown hat or a white hat, which there were only one per line, those were the line supervisors. They should have changed that shit over during shift change, and they didn't. They neglected to, and so we had one way station out of six operating, and I was the one on it. But the rest of the line, of course, was doing their normal full output. So here I am, literally trying to do six people's worth of fucking work because everybody else had dropped the fucking ball. Maintenance hadn't looked at the machines. They probably hadn't even been reported as not working, the ones that weren't working. And the ones that were set up for the wrong product should have been switched over, but they weren't. They were neglected to by management. And so it forced me into this position where I'm doing literally six people's work at my one fucking way station. So we're not supposed to let product fall to the floor because the floor is unsanitary. I'm gonna have to cut the video here. You notice I keep doing that. It's a situation with my phone. Long fucking story. Anyways, I'll finish this in a second. So there I am trying to do six people's worth of work. And the problem is you can't drop shit on the floor because it's considered unsanitary. Even though the product that is coming to my station is fully packaged, still people who are called floor janitors had to come around because I wasn't allowed to touch anything that touched the floor. They had to come around and pick up the shit off the floor. And a fully packaged ham inside both the, it was shrink wrapped, and then it had Mylar bagging over it, and then it had like the netting over it. They had to pick that up and take it to a big ass bucket full of rubbing alcohol, basically, and dump it in there to sanitize it if it falls on the floor. Which of course slows down our output and whatever and adds labor, blah, blah, blah. So there was a table like on the opposite side of the conveyor belt for me, which the conveyor belt's only like 1.5 feet wide, maybe 2 feet at the most. So I can reach this table, but I had been basically, what had been happening is I can't let hams pass me because the guys who box them are going to have to grab them and send them back up because they hadn't been weighed yet. So I can't do that, but I'm the only one weighing, and I'm dealing with the entire line's output. I can't keep up, so they have to go somewhere. So I was piling them up on this table. I've got a bin next to me, but it's only like a little 1 by 2 foot fucking tote bin that's like not even a foot deep. So I've already got that full of fucking hams. Everybody at their other weigh stations had their bins full of hams, and they can't weigh anything because their machines won't fucking work or are set up for the wrong product. So my bin's full, and this table next to me fills up too, and I've got nowhere else to put them. But every time one of them gets past me and goes to the guy's boxing, somebody brings it back up and they're fucking pissed. So I can't do that either. And so I'm still just trying to pile them higher up on this table. And of course, a couple of them roll off and hit the floor. And then that's when the shift superintendent comes around and she's like, if another one of those lands on the floor, you're getting written up. And that was when I lost it. I was like, I'm sick of your fucking bullshit. I told them, like, I'm done for the day. We can come back and try this again tomorrow, but I can't handle this anymore today. I need to leave. And they said, if you leave, you're gone. That's it, mister. And I was like, well, isn't that a fucking shame? And I walked the fuck out. Um, Shit like that. Like, I don't feel like it's necessarily my fault that I can't deal with shit like that. Like, even somebody who has no such condition as I do shouldn't be put in such a fucking position. Like, management should have changed the fucking machines over and reported to maintenance that those other ones needed looked at. You know, nobody can do six people's work in a factory environment, but they want you to because it makes them money. If one person can do five people's jobs, then they don't have to hire those other four people, do they? So I don't know. That's the situation I'm dealing with. And it's not just factories and warehouses because they do the same shit to you in retail. They do the same shit to you in call centers, etc. Like anywhere you go. Basically, I want to get out of unskilled labor because if I have like an actual skill, I have value. When you are an unskilled general laborer, you have no value. You are immediately and infinitely replaceable. And so they don't give a fuck how you feel. They don't give a fuck about your mental illness or anything. They'll just fucking throw you away. If you're not profitable enough to them, you're gone and somebody else will come in because they can get anyone to fill that job. Like a trained chimpanzee can do it. And so if you don't want to, well, there's a billion fucking high schoolers waiting for a job that they can pull in at a moment's notice. Whereas if you're like a welder or something, not everyone can weld. And especially if you're good at it, not everyone can weld well. So if I were to get into like a trade or something, I would have at least some leverage. Like they couldn't just instantly replace me with literally anybody. You know, maybe this is fucked up of me to say, but I need my employer to hurt if they lose me. Because then they have to kind of give a shit about how I feel. But regardless, that was why I wanted to seek like an on paper formal diagnosis, is because I want to be able to point to a sheet of paper and someone with an acronym next to their name and say, hey, I need you to not do that shit to me. And as long as you don't do that to me, I will be here on time all the time and I will do my work quality and relatively fast. You just can't push it. Like in the FedEx example, it needs to be 150 an hour. Like you tell me that's the standard, I will meet or even slightly exceed that standard, no problem. And I'll do it all the time. But when you give me 300 plus per hour, we're gonna have a fucking problem. Like I wanted a formal way to put my foot down in that sense, and I feel like maybe I have that now. We'll see. I still get the pessimistic feeling that even having a formalized avenue to request accommodations, most places probably aren't going to give a shit. They're probably going to expect the same bullshit that these other places have. I don't know. We're going to have to see. I may have to just find a medication that makes me not care what happens to me or how people treat me and just permanently dissociate myself from life in order to survive. Um, that and talk therapy, if someone can train me to no longer feel anything, that would help. Um, you know, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I'm of course as negative as ever. And now I can tell you that I have a reason to be. I have a specific reason why I'm so fucking negative. Um, but yeah, for the moment, I'm unemployed and looking for a job again, and I can't survive this pattern of behavior much longer. Literally, like I'm gonna end up like freezing to death in my car is what I mean. I'm not saying I'm gonna hurt myself because I'm not. Um, I'm going to end up being hurt because I can't hold down a job. So there you have it. There's your daily struggles of depressive type schizoaffective. It makes me see things weird. I'm paranoid as shit about other people and an anxious wreck in public. And I can't hold down a job because I have a hard time dealing with all the stress and pressure that is set upon the average worker, the blue collar worker, and probably most office people too, just in a very different way. It's not as physical, but I'm sure they get saddled with a bunch of bullshit too. Anyways, yeah, there you have it. That's the life of a depressive type schizoaffective. Uh, I hope this was vaguely educational for some of you, at least. If not, I hope it was at least entertaining. You got to watch a freak ramble on for way too long. An hour plus, I'm sure. I haven't been counting. Anyways, I'm gonna shut the fuck up. That's another one of my one of my symptoms, the disorganized thoughts and speech. Sorry. I'll see you around.